Hey everyone, and welcome to GDoC Rewind from Game Devs of Color. We're digging into over a decade of incredible GDoCExpo talks and bringing some of our favorite conversations directly to your ears. Featuring developers sharing real insight into making games, building community, navigating the industry, and so much more. This talk hits right at the heart of this season's theme. This season, Surviving the Industry explores what it means to build a sustainable life and career in games, from burnout and layoffs to community care, resilience, and healing. Miko Charbonneau, head of Pretty Smart Games, shares how she's kept a remote team across 4 time zones mentally healthy, connected, and hitting deadlines. And her advice is way more practical than you'd expect. Let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Miko Charbonneau, aka Dr. Mikachu, head of Pretty Smart Games. Let's get the depressing stuff out of the way. You're here for a reason. Maybe you're feeling totally stressed out, overwhelmed, or disappointed in the state of the world. And despite that, there's some part of you that's saying, this is a great time to start an indie game studio. And you listen to that part. Whether you're just starting out in your game dev career, you're disillusioned from working at other people's game studios, or you've already taken the leap and you've started your own, there's a lot of doubts that can set in during this time. And I understand those feelings. For the last few years, I've been running my own game studio with 7 people across 4 time zones. We're about to release our biggest game ever, and we did it somehow during this global chaos and even some smaller chaos in our personal lives. And I have to say that this is the most rewarding career choice I ever made, despite all of that. So I want to help you if I can by offering my top advice that helped me keep my sanity and reduce stress and anxiety along the way. I'm directly focusing on mental health because it's extremely difficult, if not totally impossible, to stay focused and productive without the right mindset. We've got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get right into it. The most important thing that you can do is lessen the risk and pressure however you can. Let's say that you finish your first game and, heaven forbid, it's not a huge financial success. You're not a millionaire yet. You're not super popular and famous. That person you admire in the game industry still doesn't know who you are. Does this make you a failure? No, of course it doesn't make you a failure. It makes you like almost everybody else who ships their first game in their indie game studio, or their second or their third. The people that you think are making everything themselves and their first game was magically a success, it was probably their 40th game and no one talks about all the ones that came before. Or they came over from another industry entirely. They already had a huge following from somewhere else. Or maybe they were just super lucky. And I'm not taking away from those people. That's awesome that they did that. I'm just saying there's a lot of other people out there who succeeded slower and with less fanfare. You have to start thinking about long-term success and establishing goals for your survival. If your next game release is risking your financial stability or health, then of course it's going to heighten your stress levels and you might not be able to finish at all. You'll have to take all that pressure on or pass it on to your team. Consider instead, if you have to work a day job unrelated to games in order to save up your budget, if you have to live with family for a while, if it takes several more years because of health issues, or because you just don't have time. You have kids and dogs and cats and ferrets and fish and parents to take care of. These don't make you a failure. Failure is only if you give up on your dreams. And I'm not saying that you're never going to think about the financial side or you're never going to try to be great at marketing in addition to shipping a game. All these things are really important. I'm saying just bite off one thing at a time. This is what makes running a studio different from shipping a single game. You're building a legacy and, dare I say, a brand. Every game that you release should leave you in a good place where you're proud of what you did and you're ready to move on to your next project. So we work across time zones, and I'm glad we do because I get to hire people regardless of where they live. However, when you don't see people in person, there's a risk of losing track of how they're doing, and people can start to feel isolated or underappreciated. Communication is key, even if it's happening asynchronously, as in whenever each person finds that time to check in with you. So if someone leaves a post in whatever app you use to group chat, make sure that you react as soon as you can. It may seem like a small thing, but it's really not. Encouraging everyone to leave emoji reactions and GIFs and comments on someone else's posts is extremely important. It lets them know that you saw what they did, and when people are working in different time zones, sometimes it feels like you're just throwing something into abyss and waiting for nothing to happen. And that leads to uncertainty and lost progress. It's also lonely if you're the only one who's posting. So you can set an example by posting your own small updates regularly. I borrowed this advice from Masahiro Sakurai. He's got an incredible YouTube channel with amazing advice on being a creative director and a leader. And one thing that he says is that he does a blog post or a screenshot every day when he works on a game. As we got further in development, I found myself getting into this habit too. Most people focus on their own work and they start to lose track of everything that's happening outside of that. I noticed that my team was checking in more often when I began posting more. They were more aware of what was happening in the game in general, and there was an increase in their own posts because they saw that every shared item didn't have to be a perfectly polished blog post. It could be really small, a new art sketch, a snippet of code you're working on, or a funny bug that you found. Keep it easy and you'll start to find the energy to do it daily or close to it. You also need to track tasks clearly and leave space for questions. It doesn't matter what app you use for tasks, but it does matter that everyone is willing to use it and not feel intimidated by it. So if you're noticing that people seem confused with the process, that's a good reason that you should try to find a different app or a different workflow. It should be an app that it's easy for people to tag you in and other people so that it's easy for them to let you know if they have a question and you need to get to it later on. And when creating a task, your job is to make success clear and easy to obtain. When tasks are vague, they create stress on that team member. For example, a vague task could be something like create the first level of the hotel. And some people might be extremely motivated to try out ideas, but without your vision, it's not going to be clear what direction you want them to go. So a better example would be sketch 5 room layouts of the first level of the hotel using this mood board for decor reference. The room should be 5 meters by 5 meters and give a sense of dread and worn down opulence. Make the sketches as different from each other as possible to generate discussion at our next sync. The specific clarity in that phrase will help people know when their task is done and when they should come to you for review and they're ready to move forward. It's also good to have regular check-ins with people, but this doesn't always have to be face-to-face either. We use a bot to automatically message everyone at the end of the week with 3 simple questions. What did you do this week? What will you do next week? And do you need anything? I found that I don't like pinging each person individually, so this tool makes sure it happens regularly without missing anyone, and I learn new things about people almost every week based on what they're willing to share. I also fill these out so people know what I'm doing, and we can turn it off if someone is out of office. And it's important to point out that it's not a problem if someone fills out their form for the week and it says, I didn't get much done because my family was in town. That lets me know that something happened. I can figure out if the task should be delayed, if we should scope it down, or maybe postpone it until later. Your team shouldn't be afraid to tell you that they had a bad mental health day or a time conflict. And that's only possible if you trust each other and you're honest with each other. It turns out when people trust each other, they share information. And the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. As leader of your own studio, this decision-making power is vital to your success. Making any decision is better than making no decision at all, even if you fear that it's the wrong one. So one of the best things you can do is train yourself to know what you want, be consistent, and be clear. And when you're really not sure, tell people that, open up to them, and let them know you're also open to suggestions. You can let them know what would help sway you one way or the other, or articulate why you're having trouble deciding, and that'll let people give you helpful advice and move you past that block together. Now, you'll also often be the person who has to say no to the wishes of others because there's no budget or time, and that can feel pretty bad. It sometimes feels like it's also in conflict with you wanting to listen to everybody's voices. Early on, we created a section in our design document that was called Wild Ideas, and literally anything could go in there. I think the first idea was simply a dancing bear. It could be about anything. It doesn't even have to be about the game, just people's top of their mind thoughts as they have fun working on it. We ended up with a lot of funny t-shirt slogans as well. And this is all in a place where people can have fun and they can check in, and occasionally something would make it into the backlog. Then, as we got further into making our game, people's ideas shifted to things that they wanted to do to make the game better. And sometimes that wasn't always my highest priority. So I taught the team to manipulate me. Basically, I showed them how they could make a bug with the feature that they wanted to add, and that they would have to explain to me why this is great for the player and necessary to move up in priority. So for example, if somebody wanted to add more animations for a creature, they could say that it would improve clarity on what the creature's actions were during battle, instead of just saying because it would look cool, even though it would definitely look cool. And now all of you also know how to manipulate me, so please use that power sparingly for my sake. One thing that this team has taught me is that they love to be social with each other, and they work faster and better when they co-work. So we have a silent co-working time. I'd never thought of this before. I always thought of co-working as something where you jump into a voice channel and you gotta make sure your hair looks nice and everybody's talking and it's hard to concentrate. But we actually join a channel together and everyone's mics and videos are off and we just share our screens. Seeing what other people are working on is really motivating and it encourages you to do your own work. We always think about people's time zones when we're setting these co-working sessions together, but people can also jump in whenever they want unplanned in case anybody's around that wants to join. And we also do social time where we're not allowed to talk about the game. This also means that you can't talk about other games in your genre as a workaround to really talk about your game. We call this fika time after the Swedish tradition, where you get yourself a little snack and you get yourself a little drink and you just hang out and chill. And sometimes people even chill and they don't say anything. They're just vibing, and that's okay too. These times are completely optional. They're just social time in case people want to bond or they want to just talk about life or have a little bit of a break. And finally, we come to embracing your shortcomings. Now, if you're like me, you might have a little voice in the back of your head that's happy to tell you about your shortcomings all day long. Well, we're not talking about that voice. We're talking about embracing the things that you're not personally great at right now and accepting them. You can start by evaluating how much of the work on your current game is new skills that your team has never done before. If it's a high percentage, like 50% or more, start thinking about how to get that number down. Because the higher the number is, the more risk you're taking on with this project. As an example, in our current game, The Spirit Lift, we're making a 3D game at a scale that we'd never done before. So we made intentional choices at the beginning to do low poly 3D, grid-based movement, and to not do rigged animation. And this really reduced our technical load. It also reduced potential bugs so we could focus on the new areas that we thought would bring the most value to this game. And when everyone on the team feels safe discussing their abilities, it's also easier to address problems. I love hearing someone ask for help because it means I can give them better direction, I could get support from another teammate, or we can rearrange tasks. No one should feel uncomfortable when tasks are moved around or disrespected. And that's possible if we're all encouraging each other and reminding each other about how awesome our strengths are. Strengths are not just dev skills. Teammates with enthusiasm, curiosity, organization, and great communication are all making the game better through their outlooks and attitudes. Another way that you can embrace shortcomings is to know yourself when you're under pressure. One thing that I do is I don't want anyone else to burn out, so I start to take on all the tasks no one else is doing, and suddenly I have 5 times as many. And that's a bad habit of mine. So what I do is I have somebody ready to call me out. Usually my romantic partner. I'll say, the next month, I really think that I'm going to be trying to do too much. Can you just tell me that I'm working too late, that I am having too many tasks put on me, and just let me know and bring attention to that so I know that I should probably stop. Oh, and here's another shortcoming of mine. I've been told that I'm extremely cheesy and sappy, so I'm going to end this talk with a very important thing. In fact, the most important thing that I want you to remember. The time to create will never be perfect. The ideal world doesn't exist. There are forces out there that are against us. And yeah, it is sad and depressing, but you know what? In every period of history before us and in every period after, there'll be people like you trying to express their stories and their creativity. And you can't give up just because of this. All your favorite books and games and music and so on were made in spite of hardship and adversity. And in fact, some of them were made because of it. because someone got so angry that they had to take action. So don't let anybody stop you from being creative. Find ways to keep making what you want for as long as you're here, step by step and game by game. And soon you're going to be farther along than you could have ever imagined. Thank you for listening, and you can always find me on Blue Sky, Twitch, and you can check out our game, The Spirit Lift, on Steam and Itch.
That was Miko Charbonneau with some genuinely grounding advice on running a studio without running yourself into the ground. If one thing stuck with you, let it be this: long-term success is built slow, and that's okay. You've been listening to GDoC Rewind from Game Devs of Color. If you enjoyed this episode, you can discover more talks, resources, and upcoming events on our website, gamedevsofcolor.org. Share the episode if you thought it was insightful, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.